Hi there, I'm Brian, and this is my brother Brad. We run a clothing company called Two Blind Brothers, but we're taking a minute away from that to make a series on living with Stargardt's disease, trying to make a bit of a compendium of information because a lot of people are searching for that. Today, we are going to talk about different social situations that we find ourselves in and the challenges faced. If you are interested, we have a bunch of other videos out there that you can go and check out, anywhere from schools to Just Diagnosed to sports, all across the board. So check those out.
So, to frame this right up front, when it comes to social situations, the issue is if you have Stargardt's, it's really hard to recognize people. And so what we thought we would do is kind of, with that in mind, we would take a few scenarios and kind of tell you what we've found to be helpful in getting through them. So maybe we can start with number one. Somebody comes up to you and says, hi. They clearly know you, but you have no idea who they are. What do you do in that situation?
Don't use any names. That's probably trick number one. Never use anybody's name. Everyone is a hey there, hi friend, nice, and the other big one is always say nice to see you instead of nice to meet you, because nice to see you implies that you know who they are as well. Nice to meet you, and if you have met them before, can come across a little confusing. And there's two things to do here. One is if you don't really want to explain why you can't see the person and you just don't want to have that conversation again, then you go with trying to figure out who they are from context. Ask open-ended, a little bit vague questions. Nice to see you. How have you been? What have you been up to? How's your summer been? And if you do know them, over the course of 4 or 5 questions, you'll be able to narrow that funnel into somebody that they are. Not to say all the time, because there's a lot of conversations I've left after 15 minutes just smiling and saying, I have no idea who that person is, but what a lovely summer they've been having. And the other one, and this is the big one that is going to overarch all of these, you're going to have to take ownership of your visual impairment. Sometimes you're just going to have to say, hey, I can't see really well. Sorry, I don't recognize you. 99% of people don't care. And 2, if you don't want to have to do that, you're going to have to take ownership of the conversation. And what I mean by that is you are going to have to drive and dictate most of the conversation because you're mining for information on who the person is rather than just having a chit chat when you could recognize them outside of that.
Basically, if I meet somebody on the street, I don't know who they are, I'll start with a hey, because who knows, it might be a friend that actually knows that I have a vision issue. Sometimes it's not, sometimes it's an acquaintance. And so you'll say, hey, how's it going? What's new? What have you been up to? And then you always have your sort of ripcord where you just basically say, I can't recognize you, I have bad eyesight. Everyone gets it, it's fine, as long as you're sort of taking ownership of it. The worst thing you can do is act like you're afraid, scared, because that comes across like you're not friendly, or that you don't want to talk to them. They don't know it's because you can't recognize them, so you're being shy. We generally find, take ownership of the conversation, put yourself out there, take responsibility for being the friendly person that could talk to a wall with no response. And generally, after the first 15 seconds of not knowing who the person is, you'll know who it is.
There is a giant benefit when you have Stargardt's disease to force yourself into being a bit more extroverted, because you're going to be in a lot of situations where you're going to be talking to strangers. They might be your best friend, but you will not recognize them. So you have to get comfortable talking to strangers. This ultimately becomes a giant gift in your life, because when you treat everybody like your best friend, even if they're a stranger, you make a lot of friends, and talking to strangers becomes absolutely simple.
Scenario number 2, you're in a service area. You're either at a restaurant where you can't see the menu, or you're at a ticket counter or a movie ticket counter and you can't actually read the options, how do you navigate that situation where there's a service person that's expecting you to see something that you can't see?
Hey, I'm sorry, I forgot my glasses, and can you help me out real quick? That covers 100% of your issues. People understand not having glasses, you having to say, I have a rare retinal eye disease called Stargardt disease, juvenile form of macular degeneration, actually deteriorated my center of vision. You're gonna lose the person, and you don't wanna say that 10 times a day. Hey, I forgot my glasses. What's your favorite thing on the menu? Do you have like a chicken sandwich or something, which is always delicious? Or, hey, yeah, no, I'm looking to go to this movie. I just don't see it up there. I forgot my glasses. People will help you because that's their job, is to help the customer who comes up. And frankly, it's such a blip on the radar now that I even do it when I just want to be lazy and not pull out my phone to take a picture of a menu. I'll just talk to the waiter instead.
And just to give another little option there, I usually say I have bad eyesight. They don't even ask where my glasses are or whatever. I just say, I have bad eyesight, can you help me with this? Which is essentially the same thing.
Scenario 3, walking into a crowded place where you need to find someone. Brad?
This is tough. Let's paint the scenario that you're in college, there's a big lunchroom, you know you have friends sitting somewhere in there, you just don't know where. There are two approaches that we generally take. One is the walk around. So you literally just walk around the room, you get as close as you can to the tables. This gives you the opportunity to see somebody that you recognize. Maybe you knew what backpack they had, or if they're 7 feet tall, you're gonna figure that out. Maybe you can't see exactly who they are, but you're gonna have a better chance of doing that. And number two, it actually gives them a chance to spot you. So they'll call out to you. I do wanna throw out the third option, which is literally to sit down with strangers. Feels awkward, especially if you're in college or high school, whatever, but surprisingly, it really works. You just run over with your lunch tray, you're like, yo, is somebody sitting here? And they say no. I say, yeah, I'm just super casual, and nobody really minds that much.
And the other one that I'll throw out is put some of the onus on your friend or whoever you're meeting to say, hey, yeah, I'm heading over, can you wave to me? Or like all my friends know, if I'm in a place, I'm usually just wandering around and somebody will come over and tap me or wave an arm. So just put the onus on them a little bit, and nobody should ever mind.
And I also want to kind of put another scenario out there where you're at like a crowded party, where maybe you know 2 people, but there's 200 people at the party. I've been really surprised at actually how easy it is to find my friends in that situation. Even though you can't recognize their face, if you have the context that they're gonna be there, by just walking around, you will generally be able to find them. If I'm at a bar in Boston and I don't expect Brian to be in Boston and he's sitting next to me, except when he opens his mouth and I can hear his loud voice, I'm not gonna realize that it's him. Like, I wouldn't pick him out and be like, oh, Brian, I didn't realize you're in Boston. But it could be like even a concert venue. It could be a large venue, but if I know he's there, all of a sudden I'm screening to a very particular body type, hairstyle, whatever. And it's actually not so difficult to find your friends. That's just a little note for people who are recently diagnosed and are worried that they're going to be sort of lost in these kind of busy venues with their friends or family. At the end here, we'll throw a little dating advice out there. I was single for several years in New York City, did a lot of dating. Here are a few things that helped me a lot. Right now, dating off of apps is a very popular thing. If you're blind or you're visually impaired, going to that restaurant to find that person can actually be extremely awkward because you don't really have a good sense of what they look like. You haven't seen them face to face. You don't have a sense of how tall they are. The things I just mentioned about finding someone in a venue. My trick was always to pick a location near where I lived or where I was going to be, either like say a work environment or a park or a gym or whatever it is, not the location itself. We'd have plans to meet up at the location, and maybe a half an hour before, I would say, hey, I'm just finishing up at X, Y, and Z spot. The gym, the office, finishing up something at home. Do you want to walk over together? And they would generally come over. Sometimes people are a little concerned about, meeting you at some obscure location that's not like a bar or restaurant, so that sort of solved it. But you can also just say, hey, do you want to meet and walk over together? Also, you can just tell them that you're visually impaired right up front before you meet them. But generally, I found that sort of came out naturally over the course of the date.
Slightly simpler solution is get there early and just say I'm here. That is always, that's you don't have to do a whole rigmarole. No, getting there early, super simple. Then the onus is on the other person to find you instead of vice versa, so you save yourself a lot of trouble. 2, when you're going to a restaurant, you're not going to be able to read the menu, and if you don't want to immediately get into a whole conversation about visual impairment, just look up the menu online before you go there and kind of just pick a few things that you like. All menus are on the internet, so you can say, oh, okay, I'm probably going to get one of these few things, and then when you get there, you don't have to go into that. And the other one is people are always concerned about telling others they have a visual impairment. They view it as a bad thing. What I found is how you treat it is how others interact with it. Meaning, if you're very nonchalant and very casual about having Stargardts or telling them you have a visual impairment, they'll react in the same exact way that you put it out there. If I am worried, concerned, a little embarrassed, a little shy about it, they will feel that there's something wrong and that they should also be a little awkward around the subject. If I just say, oh yeah, I have a visual impairment, yeah, I've had it since I was 7, no problem. Anyways, what's going on with you? That immediately sets the tone, and so you don't need to get into the whole conversation right there.
When somebody asks you about your vision or you bring it up in either a social situation or on a date, being able to just kind of explain it with confidence is critical. I've generally found that nobody really cares, and in fact, people actually feel like you're disclosing something very honest about yourself. I found that it actually makes conversations very interesting and doesn't necessarily hurt you. The big trick is that they have to see that you're totally comfortable with yourself, because they're going to see that you can navigate for the most part, you can get around, you're social, they're going to see that there's no real issue holding you back from living a full life. And that's really the key, is having confidence, being comfortable with who you are.
So this has been our run through on social situations with Stargardts and a little bit on dating there at the end. But what I would love from you is that your strategies and techniques, this has worked for Brad and I, but that might have something to do with our personalities in general. Would love to hear from the rest of the community on other insights down in the comments below. But thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.